Let's step into a world where the air is thick with mist, and the trees whisper secrets long forgotten. A land where the moon hangs too low in the sky, casting silvered shadows that dance unnaturally across the ground. The soil beneath your boots is damp, not with water, but with something far older, something that has seeped into the land itself. You have come far, driven by the same gnawing hunger that has brought all who came before you. The black spire looms ahead, a colossal monolith of ancient stone and dark legend. Its silhouette, etched against a bruised sky, seems to breathe with a life of its own. For centuries it has stood unyielding, untouched by the relentless march of time or the ravages of nature. Whispers in nearby villages hint at its true nature: a prison, a tomb, a monument to an entity that should never have been summoned. The villagers call it by many names, each uttered only in hushed tones for fear that speaking its name might summon its unblinking gaze. Those unfortunate enough to be caught in that gaze are said never to return. You recall the warnings you once scoffed at, the crumbling texts, the fevered ramblings of mad scholars, and the dire prophecies etched into the ruins of forgotten temples. Yet, your thirst for forbidden knowledge was too potent, your desire for power too irresistible. With every step along the winding path to the spire, the very air seemed charged with anticipation. The rustle of leaves, the murmur of unseen streams, even the distant cry of a night creature all formed a symphony of dread and wonder that spurred you onward. Your journey to this unholy threshold was long and fraught with perils, both tangible and spectral. You traversed barren plains where the wind howled with the voices of the damned, and you wandered through haunted forests where the trees appeared to shift and conspire behind your back. At dusk, the horizon burned with an otherworldly glow, as if the sun itself was reluctant to bid farewell to the cursed land. Every footfall was an act of defiance against a destiny that seemed written in the very stars. Upon reaching the base of the spire, you paused before its massive, weathered doors. They did not creak open with protest or anger. Instead, they yawned wide in a silent invitation, as though eager to share their darkest secrets. You hesitated only for a heartbeat before stepping into the yawning void beyond, leaving behind the familiar world for a realm where the laws of nature and time were mere suggestions. Inside, long corridors stretched out before you, their stone floors shrouded in a thick layer of dust and the decay of ages past. Each step you took was muffled, as if the very air sought to soften your arrival. The walls were etched with ancient inscriptions, cryptic symbols and twisting glyphs whose meanings had been lost to time. At times, these markings seemed to writhe and shift under your gaze, a maddening trick of the mind, or perhaps the very spirit of the spire playing with your sanity. There was an almost palpable presence in the darkness, an unseen force that followed your every move. Whispers, half-formed and ghostly, drifted on the stale air. They spoke in forgotten tongues and recounted lost histories. The further you ventured, the more acute the sensation of being watched became. You could not shake the feeling that something vast and terrible was anticipating your arrival, its interest in you both personal and predatory. In a vast hall lined with pillars of obsidian that absorbed every stray beam of light, you paused to catch your breath. Here, the air was heavy with the weight of ancient sorrows and unspeakable horrors. Shadows clung to every surface, and every echo of your footsteps was a reminder of the countless souls who had come before you, lured by the promise of forbidden wisdom and the lure of ultimate power. Their silent cries, trapped in the stone, mingled with the ambient hum of something beyond mortal ken. As you moved deeper into the labyrinthine corridors, your mind began to recall fragments of the journey that led you here. Visions of ruined temples, where once proud columns lay shattered beneath the relentless advance of time, flitted through your thoughts. You remembered scholars draped in tattered robes, speaking in hushed tones about an entity older than creation itself, a being whose mere existence defied reason. Even now, the remnants of those warnings began to resonate with an eerie clarity, transforming into prophecy as you advanced toward the heart of the spire. At length, you entered a cavernous chamber whose ceiling was swallowed by darkness. In its center stood a monolithic stone altar that pulsed with a faint, otherworldly glow. The very air around the altar seemed to ripple and breathe, alive with the memory of countless rituals performed in secret and in fear. The chamber itself appeared to be a living entity, its walls undulating imperceptibly as though in sympathy with the ancient power contained within. And there, amidst the shifting gloom, it waited. The entity was both monstrous and mesmerizing, a being whose form defied the limits of mortal imagination. Countless eyes, set in an impossibly vast skin, blinked slowly, each one reflecting an unfathomable depth of ancient wisdom and abject malice. Limbs twisted and retracted in impossible configurations, their movements fluid and disjointed, as if sculpted from the very essence of nightmares. A multitude of mouths, arranged in an unholy symmetry, curled into expressions that hinted at amusement, sorrow, and an eternal hunger. It did not need to move. Its presence permeated every corner of the chamber, a suffocating reminder of the dread that had driven legends to be born. "Why do you seek me?" Its voice resonated not only in your ears, but within the very marrow of your bones. There was an unnerving intimacy in the question, as if it already knew the deepest recesses of your heart and mind. Swallowing the fear that coiled in your throat, you met the entity's gaze with a defiant steadiness. "To understand you," you replied, your voice trembling yet resolute, a fragile spark of rebellion against the crushing weight of its omnipotence. In response, a sound that could only be described as laughter echoed through the vast chamber, a sound that was less mirth and more a cacophony of sorrow, derision, and ancient mirth. The very walls of the spire trembled as the laughter reverberated, shaking loose fragments of forgotten lore from the stone. The pressure of its presence bore down upon you like a physical force, seeking to smother your resolve, yet you remained upright, anchored by your defiance. The entity began to speak in a cadence that defied linear time. It recounted truths buried in the sands of creation, secrets older than the stars themselves. With each syllable, it offered visions of endless epics, a tapestry woven from the lives of gods and monsters, of civilizations rising and crumbling into dust. Its words slithered into your mind, altering the very fabric of your thoughts, unmaking the boundaries between knowledge and madness. Time itself seemed to dissolve. Minutes bled into hours, and hours into an eternity where only the present moment existed. In that suspended state, the world outside the spire receded into irrelevance. You were left adrift in a sea of cosmic revelations, your entire being saturated with the unfathomable depths of ancient lore. Yet, as the flood of revelations reached its zenith, a singular, terrible clarity pierced through the illusion. In that moment of clarity, you understood that the knowledge offered was not a gift, but a chain, a binding force that would tether your soul to an eternity of torment. The burden of such forbidden truth threatened to crush you, to unravel the very essence of your being. For a heartbeat, you felt as if you were dissolving, merging with the infinite void, your individuality lost in the endless tapestry of existence. No, this was not to be your fate. Summoning every ounce of will that remained, you wrenched yourself free from the entity's insidious embrace. The chamber convulsed in protest, ancient stone shuddered, and the shadows writhed as if in agony. The entity recoiled, its countless eyes narrowing in a semblance of disbelief, a reaction that was almost, impossibly, human. You had defied the inevitable, resisted the seductive pull of cosmic despair, and reclaimed the fleeting spark of your mortal defiance. The air around you ignited with a ferocious energy as the confrontation escalated into a battle that transcended mortal comprehension. The very fabric of the spire buckled under the strain of your struggle, walls twisted into impossible geometries, opening into voids that threatened to swallow both you and the ancient horror. Tendrils of darkness surged forth from the entity, lashing out with a malevolence born of millennia. Yet you moved with a grace that belied the chaos. Each step, each flicker of movement, a testament to your determination to defy fate. In that maelstrom of opposing forces, you summoned the latent power within you, an energy forged from the countless battles of forgotten heroes and the indomitable spirit of those who dared to challenge the abyss. Radiant blades of energy, fueled by the resolve of every defiant soul that had ever stood against the dark, burst forth from your being. Flames, imbued with the wrath of ages, danced around you, carving arcs of incandescent brilliance through the oppressive gloom. But the entity was ancient, its awareness predating your very existence. It anticipated your every maneuver, countering your onslaught with a precision that spoke of infinite experience. Every strike you delivered was met with an equally swift reprisal. It was as if the battle were not one of mere physical might, but a war of wills, a cosmic dance where every move was predestined and every counter inevitable. Desperation clawed at your mind as the struggle reached its zenith. Your thoughts raced, seeking a chink in the armor of this primordial horror. And then, amidst the relentless barrage, you perceived it, a subtle hesitation, a transient falter in the relentless tide of darkness. It was not fear that gripped the entity, but something akin to regret or perhaps a flicker of doubt, a reminder of a time long past when it, too, may have known a semblance of mercy. In that fleeting moment, you concentrated every fiber of your being on that singular vulnerability, drawing upon the legacy of every soul that had ever rebelled against the crushing tide of despair. You channeled your energy into one final, desperate surge. A burst of pure, unadulterated light erupted from within you, a radiance that defied the corrupting void and seared through the very darkness that threatened to consume you both. The force of the attack was cataclysmic, and for a heartbeat, the spire trembled under the onslaught of defiance incarnate. Then, as suddenly as the tumult had begun, a profound silence fell over the chamber. The monstrous entity, that ancient horror of 1,000 nightmares, seemed to evaporate into nothingness, leaving behind only the echoes of its once terrifying presence. The spire, its purpose as a prison, a temple, a tomb, began to crumble, its foundations eroding under the weight of the unleashed energies. Stone and shadow disintegrated, returning to the primordial chaos from which they had emerged. You stood alone amid the ruins, your body trembling from the exertion and your mind reeling from the cosmic revelations you had been forced to confront. The battle was over, yet its echoes reverberated within you, a reminder that every victory was paid for in blood and sacrifice. The oppressive darkness that had shrouded the spire was lifting, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, you sensed a fragile hope stirring within the void. Stepping gingerly from the wreckage, you felt the night air embrace you, a cool, cleansing balm that carried the distant promise of renewal. The moon, once a low and ominous presence, now hung higher in the sky, its gentle luminance bathing the land in a silvery glow. The oppressive weight that had burdened your heart began to lift, replaced by the bittersweet knowledge of survival and the lingering taste of hard-won wisdom. Yet even as you left the shattered remnants of the spire behind, you could not escape the truth that your journey was far from over. Deep within the recesses of your mind, the memory of that cosmic encounter simmered, a persistent echo that would forever haunt your dreams. In the silent spaces between your thoughts, a soft whisper lingered, a promise or perhaps a threat that the entity was not truly vanquished, but merely receding into the shadows of eternity. As you wandered away from the ruins, your steps tentative yet resolute, the world around you began to transform. The twisted landscape, scarred by the ancient battle, slowly revealed hints of beauty amidst the decay, a testament to the eternal cycle of destruction and rebirth. Nature itself seemed to reclaim the forsaken ground, delicate blossoms emerging from cracked stone and tendrils of ivy creeping over the remnants of forgotten architecture. In the quiet solitude of the aftermath, you found moments of introspection. The journey had changed you irreversibly. The hunger that had once driven you now mingled with a profound understanding of the costs of delving too deeply into the arcane. You had seen the unfathomable, touched the void, and come back bearing scars both seen and unseen. And though your heart pounded with the adrenaline of survival, there remained an undeniable truth, a truth that every seeker of forbidden lore must one day confront, that knowledge comes at a price. You recalled the faces of those who had warned you, their voices echoing in your memory like spectral guides. Their words, once dismissed as superstitious ramblings, now bore the weight of prophecy. In the glimmer of starlight and the murmur of the wind, you began to understand that the path you had chosen was not a solitary one. It was a continuum, a cycle of curiosity, defiance, and ultimately, transformation. Every step forward was a step into the unknown, into realms where reality and myth entwined in a dance as old as time itself. The Spire was but one chapter in an endless saga of cosmic encounters and existential battles. Somewhere in the vast expanse of the universe, other seekers would rise, driven by the same relentless hunger for truth and power. And somewhere, in the interstices of shadow and light, the ancient entity would wait once more, its countless eyes ever watchful, its form forever shifting in the eternal struggle between creation and annihilation. For now, though, you walked away from the ruin, your spirit tempered by the fires of conflict and the bittersweet knowledge of your own resilience. The night, though dark and mysterious, held within it the promise of new beginnings. The scars of the past would serve as both a reminder and a guide, urging you onward into a future that was as uncertain as it was inevitable. And in that final, lingering moment, a moment suspended between the remnants of ancient nightmares and the fragile hope of dawn, a soft, almost imperceptible voice resonated in the depths of your consciousness. It was a promise, a warning, and a benediction all at once, echoing from the abyss. We will meet again. Let's step into a world where the air is thick with mist, and the trees whisper secrets long forgotten. A land where the moon hangs too low in the sky, casting silvered shadows that dance unnaturally across the ground. The soil beneath your boots is damp, not with water, but with something far older, something that has seeped into the land itself. You have come far, driven by the same gnawing hunger that has brought all who came before you.